The sky hung low and gray, as if it knew something was ending. Dust clung to her boots while she stood by the broken fence, one hand resting on the animal's neck a little longer than needed. That cow was more than livestock. It was the last piece of a life that had been slipping through her fingers for months, maybe longer. The land had gone dry, the well coughed more air than water, and the house behind her, once full of noise and warmth, now felt like an empty shell holding on out of habit. She did not cry, not in front of the buyer. Folks around here didn't waste tears where others could see them. The man counted his coins slow, like he was doing her a favor. She took the money without looking at him, her fingers stiff and cold despite the heat. It wasn't enough. She knew that before the deal was even made. But it was all she had left to sell. As the cow was led away, it let out a low sound, something between a call and a complaint. She turned her back before it could walk too far. Watching would only make it harder. There was work to be done, even if the work led nowhere. That was the way of things now. Keep moving, even when the road had already ended. The town was a short walk from her place, though it felt longer these days. Fewer wagons passed. Fewer voices carried on the wind. Even the saloon didn't sound the same at night. People were leaving, one by one, chasing rumors of better land, better luck. She had stayed. Not because she believed things would change, but because she didn't know where else to go. Inside the general store, the air smelled of flour and old wood. The shopkeeper barely looked up when she entered. He already knew why she was there? Everyone knew? Word traveled fast when someone hit rock bottom. She placed the coins on the counter, careful not to let them scatter. He counted them twice, then shook his head just slightly. "It'll get you some beans, a little flour," he said. "That's about it." She nodded. It was more than she had yesterday. Less than she would need tomorrow. By the time she stepped back outside, the wind had picked up, carrying dust across the empty street. She held the small sack close to her chest, as if it might disappear if she didn't. There was no plan beyond making it through another day. No promise waiting on the horizon. Just the same struggle, stretching out as far as she could see. That evening she sat on the porch steps, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The land looked almost peaceful in that light, like it was trying to hide its own harshness. For a moment, she let herself remember how things used to be. The sound of cattle in the fields, laughter drifting out from the house, the steady rhythm of a life that made sense. A faint sound broke through her thoughts. Hoofbeats. She lifted her head, eyes narrowing toward the road. It wasn't common for anyone to pass this way anymore, not this late. The figure came into view slowly, riding through the dust like something out of a half-forgotten dream. A cowboy. His posture was straight, his pace unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. He pulled his horse to a stop near the fence, looking over the land without saying a word at first. His gaze moved from the dry fields to the worn house, then finally settled on her. There was something in his expression she couldn't quite place. Not pity, not curiosity either, something steadier than that. "You sold your last cow today," he said. It wasn't a question. Her grip tightened on the edge of the step. "That's none of your concern," he nodded once, like he expected that answer. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He held it for a moment, weighing it in his hand before speaking again. "I've been looking for someone who knows how to hold on," he said quietly. "Someone who doesn't walk away when things turn bad." She frowned, unsure whether to be annoyed or cautious. "You don't know anything about me." A faint hint of a smile touched his face, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know enough." The wind stirred between them, carrying the dry scent of the land. He extended the wrapped bundle slightly, but not close enough for her to take it. "I have an offer," he said. "One that could change everything for you, but it comes with a cost. And once you hear it, there's no turning back to the life you knew." Her heart gave a slow, heavy beat. Offers like that didn't come without trouble. Around here, nothing came easy and nothing came without a price. She looked from his hand to his face, searching for some clue of what he really wanted. "What kind of cost?" she asked. The cowboy paused, just long enough to make the silence feel heavy. Then he said, "The kind that asks more than you think you have left." And before she could answer, before she could even decide whether to stand or walk away, he began to unwrap the cloth, revealing just a glimpse of what lay inside. The cloth peeled back slow in his hands, like he knew the moment mattered. She leaned forward without meaning to, her eyes fixed on what he was about to show. For a second, the wind died down and the whole world felt quiet. Inside the folds lay a small stack of papers, worn at the edges but carefully kept, along with something that caught the fading light. A silver badge, dulled with age but still carrying a weight to it. She did not reach for it. "What is that supposed to mean?" she asked, her voice steady but low. He glanced at the badge, then back at her. "It means this land you're sitting on isn't as empty as it looks." Her brow tightened. "You're wrong about that." "Am I?" he said. "You ever wonder why no one's tried to take it from you? Not the bank, not the ranchers moving through, not even the men who buy up broken places like this." She had wondered, more than once. When the drought got worse and folks started losing everything, she expected someone to come knocking, papers in hand, ready to claim what little she had left. But no one ever did. At first, it felt like luck. Later, it felt like something else. Something she didn't understand. "That doesn't mean anything," she said. "It just means no one wants dirt that won't grow." The cowboy shook his head once. "That's where you're mistaken." He shifted in the saddle, then finally extended the bundle a little closer. She hesitated, then stood up from the step, brushing the dust from her skirt. Every instinct told her to be careful. Men didn't ride out of nowhere offering change without reason. Still, she stepped forward and took the papers from his hand. They felt heavier than they should have. She unfolded the top sheet, her eyes scanning lines she could barely make sense of at first. Legal words, boundaries, marks drawn across land she knew by heart. Her heart began to beat faster, though she didn't yet know why. "I don't understand this," she said. "It's a deed," he replied. "Or part of one." She looked up at him sharply. "Part? There's more to it." "Always is with things like this." She glanced back down, her fingers tightening on the edges. "Why are you showing me this?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out across the fields again, like he was measuring something only he could see. "Years back," he began, "before the drought, before half this territory dried up, there were men who believed this stretch of land held something valuable. Not crops, not cattle. Something buried deeper." She felt a flicker of unease. "Sounds like a story told to fool desperate people. Maybe," he said. "Or maybe it's the reason some folks kept their distance from this place." She let out a small breath, shaking her head. "If there was anything worth taking here, someone would have found it by now. You'd think so," he said. "But not everything is easy to find. And not everyone knows where to look." She folded the paper halfway, her patience thinning. "You still haven't told me why any of this matters to me." His eyes met hers again, steady and unblinking. "Because the rest of that deed leads straight to you." The words landed heavier than the papers in her hand. She stared at him, searching for any sign he was joking. There was none. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "This land's been in my family longer than I've been alive. There's no missing part of it." "Are you sure about that?" he asked. She opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. A memory stirred, faint but persistent, old conversations half overheard. A locked drawer in the house that had never been opened, not even after everything else had been sold or used. She had never thought much of it. There had always been more important things to worry about. Until now? "You're guessing?" she said, though her voice had lost some of its certainty. He tilted his head slightly. "I don't ride this far on guesses." The wind picked up again, lifting strands of her hair across her face. She pushed them back, her thoughts turning faster than she could sort them. "Even if what you're saying is true," she said, "why bring it to me? Why not take whatever it is for yourself?" A faint shadow crossed his expression, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. "Because I can't finish it alone," she narrowed her eyes. "And you think I can?" "I think you're the only one who can." The answer didn't sit right with her. Nothing about this did? Yet something in his tone held firm, like he believed it without question. She looked down at the papers again, then back toward the house. The door stood slightly open, just as she had left it. Inside, the quiet waited, unchanged and familiar. But now it felt like it was hiding something. "If I say no?" she asked. He gave a small shrug. "Then I ride out the same way I came. And whatever's tied to this land stays buried. Maybe forever." The thought should have been easy to accept, walk away. Keep what little life she had left, even if it meant more struggle. But the image of that locked drawer pressed into her mind, along with the strange absence of anyone ever trying to claim her land. She let out a slow breath. You said there's a cost. There is? What kind? He paused again, longer this time, like he was choosing his words with care. The kind that doesn't just change your future, he said quietly. It changes your past too. Once you start digging into this, you might find things about your family you were never meant to know. A chill ran through her despite the warm evening air. She turned toward the house, her grip tightening on the papers. Then she looked back at him, her decision still hanging in the balance. Start talking, she said. He studied her for a moment, like he was measuring how much truth she could carry at once. Then he swung down from his horse, boots hitting the dry ground with a quiet thud. Up close, he looked more worn than she first thought. Dust clung to his coat, and there was a tiredness in his eyes that spoke of long roads and longer thoughts. It starts before you, he said, before the drought, before this place went quiet. Your family didn't just settle here by chance. She crossed her arms, holding the papers close against her. Most folks didn't. That's not saying much. Your folks were given this land, he continued, ignoring her tone. Not bought. Not claimed. Given. That alone should tell you something was different. Her mind pushed back against that idea. She had grown up hearing stories of hard work and stubborn survival. Nothing about gifts. Nothing about favors. Given by who? He glanced toward the horizon before answering. Men who didn't want their names tied to it. Men who were looking for something and needed someone they could trust to hold the ground. That sounds like trouble dressed up as kindness, she said. It usually is. The wind shifted again, carrying a faint sound from far off. Hooves, more than one this time. She turned her head, scanning the distant ridge, but saw nothing yet. Still, the sound was enough to tighten something in her chest. You expecting company? She asked, his jaw set slightly. Not the kind I'd welcome. She took a step back, instinct pulling her closer to the house. Then you better explain faster, he nodded once. There's a section of this land, just past the old well, where the ground dips lower than it should. Doesn't look like much. Most folks would walk right past it. But that's where they started digging years ago. Her thoughts flashed to that part of the property. She had always avoided it, not out of fear, but because it felt off, like the ground there held its breath. They didn't get far, he said. Something stopped them, or someone did, she frowned. You keep talking like you were there. I wasn't, he said, but I've seen what's left behind. Tools buried in a hurry, tracks leading away, not toward. And no records of what they found, if anything. The distant hoofbeats grew louder now, clearer, not passing by, coming this way. Her pulse quickened. You said no one else knows about this. I said not everyone knows where to look, he corrected. That doesn't mean they're not trying. She looked down at the papers again, then back at him. So these men, whoever they are, they think there's something buried here too? They don't think, he said. They're certain. A shape appeared at the edge of the ridge. Then another, riders, at least 3, maybe more behind them. They moved slow but steady, like they had all the time in the world. Her throat went dry. And you led them here. His expression hardened. No, but they were always going to find their way sooner or later. That's not much comfort, she said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Listen to me. If they get here before you understand what this land really holds, they won't ask questions. They'll take what they want and leave you with nothing. Maybe worse. She held his gaze, trying to read past the urgency. And you're different? Yes. The answer came too quick, too certain. It made her hesitate. You expect me to trust that? She asked. No, he said. I expect you to trust your own situation. You've got no cattle, barely enough food, and land that's drying up by the day. Whatever's buried here might be the only thing that can turn that around. The riders drew closer, their figures sharper now. She could make out hats, long coats, the glint of metal at their sides. Men who were used to getting what they came for. Her grip tightened on the papers. You still haven't told me what you get out of this. He met her eyes, and for the first time, there was something like honesty breaking through. A chance to finish what someone else started. And maybe set something right that's been wrong for a long time. That's not much to go on. It's all I've got to offer. The wind pushed harder now, kicking up dust between them. The land no longer felt quiet. It felt like it was waking up, like something long buried was shifting under the surface. She glanced back at the house again, her mind racing. That locked drawer, the old well, the part of the land she had always avoided. Pieces that never meant anything before were starting to fit together in ways she didn't like. What do we do? She asked, the words coming out before she could stop them. A small, knowing look crossed his face. First, we go inside. There's something you need to find before they get here. And if it's not there, then we're already out of time. The riders were close enough now that she could hear faint voices carried on the wind. Low, steady, confident. She took a breath, steadying herself, then turned toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last, like she was walking into something she could not turn away from. Behind her, she heard him follow, his boots firm against the ground. The door creaked as she pushed it open, the familiar darkness waiting inside, but it didn't feel the same anymore. It felt like a place holding secrets, just waiting to be uncovered. And outside, the riders kept coming. The moment she stepped inside, the air felt different. Still and heavy, like the house had been waiting for this. The cowboy moved in behind her and gently pushed the door until it nearly closed, leaving just a thin line of light from outside. The sound of the riders drifted closer, muffled but steady, a reminder that time was slipping away. "Where is it?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved across the room, taking in every worn detail. The table, the shelf, the old trunk in the corner. All things she had seen 100 times without question. Now each one felt like it might be hiding something. "You said a locked drawer?" he pressed. She nodded slowly and walked toward the far wall where a small wooden desk sat, its surface scratched and faded. It had belonged to her family long before the land started to fail. She had opened every drawer in it over the years except one. That one had never budged, no matter how hard she tried. Kneeling down, she ran her fingers along the edge of the bottom drawer. The lock was simple, but stubborn. She had always assumed the key was lost or taken. Now she wasn't so sure. "I tried opening this before," she said quietly. "It never worked. It wasn't meant to open until now," he replied. She glanced back at him. "You sound pretty certain." "I've seen things like this," he said. "People hide what matters until the right time." "Or the right person." Outside, a voice called out, not loud but close enough to make her freeze. The riders had reached the yard. Her heart pounded. "We're running out of time." "Then don't force it," he said. "Look closer." She leaned in, studying the lock again. The metal was worn but not broken. Her fingers traced along the edge of the desk, and then she felt it. A small groove underneath, barely noticeable. She pressed it without thinking. There was a soft click. Both of them stilled. Slowly, she pulled on the drawer. This time, it slid open with ease, like it had been waiting all along. Inside lay a small wooden box, darker than the desk, its surface smooth from careful handling. No dust, no signs of neglect. Someone had meant for this to be found. She lifted it out, her hands trembling just slightly. "This is it?" "Open it," he said. Another voice outside, closer now, boots on the porch. A shadow moved past the thin line of light at the door. She swallowed and opened the box. Inside were more papers, folded tight, along with a narrow metal piece shaped like a key but unlike any she had seen before. It was heavier than it looked, with markings carved along its length. The same kind of markings she had seen on the deed. The cowboy stepped closer, his focus sharp. "That's what we need." "For what?" she asked. "To prove what this land really holds," he said. "And to claim it before they do?" A firm knock hit the door, making her flinch. "Anyone inside?" a voice called out. Calm, but not friendly. She looked at the cowboy, her uncertainty rising again. "If we open that door, this could go bad fast." "If we don't," he said. "They'll come in anyway." The knock came again, harder this time. She closed the box and held it tight. "You said there's a place near the well?" He nodded. "That's where this leads. And you think this key opens something there?" "I know it does." The door handle shifted slightly, testing. Her breath caught. "Then we don't have much choice." He gave a short nod. "We go out the back. Keep low, move fast. She hesitated, looking once more at the room around her. Everything she had known was here. Every memory, every struggle. And now she was about to leave it behind without knowing if she would return. Another knock, louder, followed by the sound of boots stepping across the porch. Decision pressed down on her like weight. "All right," she said. They moved quickly. He led her toward the back door, opening it just enough to slip through. The dry air hit her face again, along with the fading light of evening. The land stretched out before them, quiet but no longer peaceful. They kept low, moving along the side of the house toward the open field. Behind them, the front door creaked open. Voices filled the space they had just left. "She's here," one of the men said. "Spread out," another answered. "Check everything." Her pulse raced as they moved farther from the house. The old well stood in the distance, just as she remembered, a dark shape against the fading sky. "Faster," the cowboy urged. They reached the dip in the land, the place he had mentioned before. Up close, it looked even stranger, like the ground had been disturbed long ago and never settled right. He knelt down and brushed away loose dirt, revealing a flat piece of stone beneath. "This is it," he said. She held out the key, her hand unsteady. "What happens when we open it?" He looked up at her, something firm in his expression. "That depends on what your family was trying to protect." Behind them, a shout cut through the air. "They're heading toward the well." The sound of boots and movement followed, closing in fast. Her heart hammered as she dropped to her knees beside him. "Then we better find out quick." He took the key and pressed it against a narrow opening in the stone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then there was a deep, quiet shift beneath them. The ground itself seemed to respond. And as the stone began to move, revealing darkness below, the riders reached the edge of the dip, their shadows stretching long across the land. The stone shifted fully aside with a low, grinding sound, revealing a narrow opening that led into darkness. Cool air rose from below, carrying a faint scent of damp earth, so different from the dry land above. For a brief second, everything stood still. Then the men behind them moved closer. "Well now," one of the riders said, his voice calm but edged. "Looks like you found it for us." She turned, her heart pounding, the empty wooden box still clutched in one hand. There were 4 of them, spread out just enough to block any easy escape. Their eyes were fixed on the opening in the ground. The cowboy stepped slightly in front of her, not hiding her but not leaving her exposed either. "You're late," he said. The man in front gave a small smile. "Seems we're right on time." Silence stretched tight between them. The wind picked up again, pushing dust across the dip, but no one moved. She looked at the opening, then at the key still in the cowboy's hand. "We don't have time to argue," she whispered. He gave a quick nod. "Stay close." Before the riders could step forward, he dropped down into the opening, disappearing into the darkness below. She hesitated only a second before following. The ground felt cool and solid beneath her boots as she landed, the light from above barely reaching the bottom. "After them," one of the men called. The sound of boots and shifting stone echoed as the others began climbing down. "Quick," the cowboy said, already moving forward. He struck a match and lit a small lantern hanging on the wall just inside the narrow passage. A soft glow spread out, revealing rough stone walls and a tunnel leading deeper underground. They moved fast, their footsteps echoing. The passage opened into a small chamber, and she stopped short. It was not gold or silver that filled the space. Instead, there were wooden crates, neatly stacked, along with bundles of papers sealed in wax. Old tools rested against the walls, and in the center stood a larger chest, marked with the same carved symbols she had seen on the key. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. "Proof," he said. "And protection." He stepped to the chest and used the key. It fit perfectly. With a turn, the lock released. Behind them, the voices grew louder as the riders made their way down. "Hurry," she urged. He opened the chest. Inside were more documents, maps, and records, names, agreements, boundaries drawn across land far beyond her own. It showed ownership, but not in the way she expected. It was a network of land held in trust, protected from being taken over by powerful buyers who had been circling the territory for years. "They were hiding it," she said, understanding beginning to settle in. "Keeping it out of the wrong hands," he nodded. "Your family was part of that?" Guardians, not just owners. The sound of footsteps reached the chamber. There they are, one of the riders said. She turned, fear rising again, but the cowboy stayed calm. He picked up a bundle of papers and handed them to her. Hold on to these, he said. They matter more than anything else in here. The riders stepped into the light, their eyes moving quickly over the room. For a moment, even they seemed surprised. This is bigger than we thought, one of them muttered. The man in front looked at her, then at the papers in her hands. You don't understand what you're holding, he said. She lifted her chin, her voice steadier now. I understand enough. This land isn't yours to take. A tense pause followed. Then the cowboy spoke, his tone firm. It never was. Something in his voice, in the way he stood, shifted the balance in the room. The riders exchanged looks. They had expected weakness, desperation, not this. You really think you can keep all this? One of them asked. No, she said honestly. But I can make sure it's used the way it was meant to be. The man in front studied her for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. This isn't over. Maybe not, the cowboy replied. But it's not ending the way you planned either. The tension held, thick and uncertain. Then one by one the riders stepped back. Not defeated, but no longer pushing forward. We'll be watching, the man said before turning away. Their footsteps faded as they climbed back out, leaving the chamber quiet again. She let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Her hands were still tight around the papers. Is it really over? She asked. He shook his head slightly. Not completely, but you've got something now. Something worth holding on to. She looked around the chamber again, then back at him. And you? What happens to you? A faint smile crossed his face. I go where I'm needed next. She studied him, then gave a small nod. You came back for a reason. I did, he said. And you didn't walk away. They made their way back to the surface together. The night had settled in, the stars beginning to show above the wide open sky. The land looked different now, not empty, not broken, just waiting. She stood near the old well, the papers held close, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not just relief, not just hope, something stronger. A future. By morning, things would begin to change. The land would not fix itself overnight, but now she knew its worth. She knew its story, and she knew her place in it. The cowboy mounted his horse as the first light touched the horizon. You'll be all right, he said. She met his gaze and nodded. So will you. He tipped his hat, then turned and rode off, just as quietly as he had arrived. She watched him go for a moment, then turned back toward the house, the land, and everything that now felt possible again. Thanks for watching this story. Subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Tell me in the comments what you felt about this story and what kind of stories you want to see next.